Welcome to Japanese Sleep Whispers, your sanctuary for peaceful nights and gentle dreams. Here, you will find calming bedtime stories inspired by the timeless beauty and traditions of Japan. Each story is read slowly in a soothing voice, accompanied by natural sounds such as flowing rivers and the tranquil rhythm of shishi-odoshi. Whether you seek relaxation, relief from stress, or help falling asleep, these tales invite you to drift away into a world of serenity. Imagine quiet temples, moonlit gardens, and the whispering bamboo forests as you listen. If you'd like these soothing stories to be part of your nightly routine, consider subscribing so they're always with you when you need them. Subscribe and let these stories be your nightly ritual of calm and rest. Thank you for being here. May you always find peace in every moment. Twilight on the Hidden Bridge. Prologue. Twilight on the Hidden Bridge. The day was coming to its gentle end, and the sky over the small river village in Japan began to soften. The colors of daylight, bright and unyielding, slowly gave way to the delicate hues of twilight. Lavender clouds stretched like silk across the horizon, and the air was heavy with the perfume of damp earth. Pine needles, and the faint sweetness of wild plum blossoms. At the edge of the village, partly hidden among old willows and bamboo, there lay a bridge. It was not marked on maps. It was not mentioned in stories told by travelers passing through. And yet, for those who wandered far enough at the right hour, it revealed itself. A wooden bridge, narrow and modest, arched gently over a river that glimmered in the last light of dusk. The villagers called it Kakur-hashi, the hidden bridge. They said it appeared most vividly at twilight, when shadows lengthened, and the boundary between day and night blurred. Children whispered that the bridge carried more than footsteps, that it carried memories, dreams, even whispers of the heart. Elders, when asked, only smiled, as though the bridge's secret was something too delicate to be spoken aloud. Haru, a boy no older than 12, had often wandered near the river banks with curiosity in his chest. He had heard the murmurs about the bridge, but he had never seen it clearly. It was always shrouded, either by reeds, drifting mist, or his own impatience. But tonight felt different. The air was calm, the twilight long and unhurried. Fireflies had begun to spark above the grass, and the river itself carried a silver sheen that seemed alive. His grandfather, an old man with a quiet step and eyes full of unspoken wisdom, walked beside him. They did not speak much. The hush of twilight had a way of settling words before they were spoken. Together, they followed the narrow path that led toward the willows. The sound of water grew stronger. The river was singing softly, its voice mingling with the faint rustle of leaves. And then, as the final threads of sunlight dipped behind the hills, the hidden bridge revealed itself. It seemed to rise out of the mist like something remembered from a dream. The wood was weathered, yet it gleamed faintly in the evening light, as though it held within it the glow of countless sunsets. The handrails were polished smooth, touched by hands long vanished, and at its center, the bridge arched so slightly that one could see the sky mirrored perfectly in the water below. Haru stopped, breath caught in his chest. The bridge felt alive, as though it had been waiting for him. His grandfather stood quietly, eyes fixed upon the structure, his expression unreadable but serene. "Grandfather," Haru whispered, "is this the hidden bridge?" The old man nodded. "Yes. But remember, Haru, the bridge is more than wood and water. It is a place where time softens, where the heart listens. When you cross it at twilight, the world speaks differently." Haru tilted his head, puzzled yet curious. The bridge looked ordinary, and yet it did not. He stepped closer, feeling the boards beneath his feet creak with a low, steady sound, like the sigh of an ancient tree. Halfway across, he paused. Below him, the river reflected the twilight sky, so perfectly that it seemed as if he were suspended between two heavens, the sky above, and its twin beneath. Fireflies drifted lazily across his path, their lights flickering like stars come down to walk beside him. He felt a hush deep in his chest, a silence that was not empty but full of something unspoken, something waiting. It was as though the bridge itself carried a voice, too quiet for words, yet strong enough to be heard by the heart. His grandfather joined him at the center. Together they looked out across the river, where reeds swayed gently in the twilight breeze. "Every traveler has a bridge, Haru," the old man said softly. "A place they must cross to see the world more clearly. Sometimes it is made of wood. Sometimes it is made of choices. Tonight, this is yours." Haru listened, though he did not fully understand. He only knew that the bridge seemed to stretch farther than its length, reaching into something unseen. The twilight deepened. The first stars appeared, shimmering above the mountains, mirrored in the river below. The bridge glowed faintly, as though holding the twilight within its beams. Haru's steps grew slower, softer. Each creak of wood beneath him felt sacred, a sound that belonged not only to his ears but to the evening itself. When he reached the far side, he turned back. The bridge was still there, quiet, steady, yet already fading slightly into the gathering night. It looked less like wood now, and more like a memory, something fragile and half-remembered even as it was lived. His grandfather placed a hand on his shoulder. "The hidden bridge will guide you," he said. "Not only across rivers, but through life. When you listen carefully, when you walk with patience, you will hear what it has to say." Haru nodded, his chest warm with wonder and questions. He looked once more at the bridge, and though it was vanishing into the shadows, its presence lingered inside him, like a song that would not fade. That night, as he lay upon his futon beneath the soft roof of their home, Haru closed his eyes and still felt the gentle creak of the bridge beneath his feet, the shimmer of fireflies, the hush of twilight. The river's song wove through his dreams, carrying him into a world where every step was guided by something unseen yet profoundly real. And so the journey began quietly, at twilight, on a bridge hidden from maps but not from the heart. Chapter 1: The Village by the River. The village lay where the river curved gently through fields of rice and barley. Its houses were small, their thatched roofs weathered by years of sun and rain, their walls glowing softly in the afternoon light. Bamboo fences lined the narrow lanes, and gardens spilled over with chrysanthemums, peonies, and small plum trees that whispered in the breeze. Haru had always known this village as home. He knew the sound of the temple bell that marked the hours. The soft chatter of neighbors exchanging greetings, and the gentle creak of the wooden water wheel turning endlessly by the stream. Life here was quiet, predictable, and kind. Children played at the river bank, chasing dragonflies and skipping stones that made ripples like silver rings. Farmers worked in the paddies, their wide hats bending like petals in the wind. Old women sat on porches, weaving baskets and humming songs whose origins were long forgotten. The village seemed timeless, a place where the world moved more slowly, where twilight lingered just a little longer. Yet Haru's thoughts often drifted to the hidden bridge. Though it revealed itself rarely, its presence was always felt like a secret folded into the rhythm of the village. Sometimes, at dusk, he thought he saw its faint outline beyond the willows, waiting. Other times, he felt it in the hush of the evening air, as if the bridge were breathing quietly, unseen but near. His grandfather spoke little of it, but Haru sensed the old man carried the bridge within him, just as the sparrow carried its song. When the day's work was done, they often sat together by the river, watching the sky fade from gold to violet. His grandfather's eyes would soften, reflecting both memory and hope, as though he, too, listened for something only the twilight revealed. One evening, Haru helped draw water from the well in the village square. Lanterns had been lit, their soft glow swaying gently in the breeze. The air was filled with the scent of roasted chestnuts, and voices drifted like music from house to house. As Haru carried the wooden bucket back toward home, he glanced toward the far end of the lane. Beyond the fields, he thought he saw a faint shimmer, the outline of the bridge rising in the mist. He stopped, heart quickening. It was only for a moment, no more than the blink of an eye. Yet it was enough. He knew then that the bridge was not only a place, it was a call, a reminder that journeys begin quietly. Often in the spaces between the ordinary and the unseen. That night, lying awake beneath the cricket's lullaby, Haru felt the weight of the village's silence around him. The bridge lingered in his mind, as steady as the flow of the river. And he wondered what waited on the other side, not only across the water, but beyond the twilight itself. Chapter 2: Lanterns in the Mist. The mist came suddenly that evening, rolling in from the river as the sun slipped behind the western hills. It spread softly through the village, blurring edges, dimming colors, and turning the world into a dream of drifting white. Roofs seemed to float above the haze, and lanterns lit along the lanes glowed like small suns suspended in the air. Haru walked slowly beside his grandfather, the two of them carrying baskets filled with vegetables from their garden. The weight of the baskets was light compared to the weight of the silence. The mist muffled sound, so that even footsteps seemed far away, as though the village itself were holding its breath. One by one, lanterns flickered to life. They hung from bamboo poles outside houses, swayed gently at the temple gate, and bobbed along the river where fishermen tied them to small boats. Their warm orange glow pierced the mist in trembling halos. Each lantern seemed less a light and more a heartbeat, gentle, steady, alive. As Haru passed one cluster of lanterns, he felt something stir within him. Their glow reminded him of fireflies, the way they gathered and drifted in summer nights. Yet these lights felt different. They were not wandering, they were guiding. They seemed to point, all of them, toward the river's edge. "Grandfather," Haru whispered, his voice barely more than a thread. "Do you see it?" The old man's gaze followed his. Through the shifting mist, beyond the last line of lanterns, a faint outline began to emerge. The hidden bridge. Its shape was not sharp, but blurred, as though it too were made of mist and memory. Still, there it was, arched over the silver water, glowing faintly in twilight's embrace. The sight stole Haru's breath. The bridge seemed closer tonight, clearer, as if the lanterns themselves had invited it forth. He felt an urge to run, to set his feet upon its boards, to hear the creak of the wood and feel the river's song beneath. But his grandfather placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Patience, Haru. The bridge reveals itself not only to the eyes, but to the heart. You must be ready when you cross." Haru swallowed and nodded, though his chest still burned with longing. The mist thickened, swirling like smoke around the lanterns, and the bridge began to fade once more. Its outline dissolved into the river's breath until only water and mist remained. The villagers, untroubled, continued their evening tasks. Children laughed somewhere unseen, their voices muffled. A dog barked once and was silent. The temple bell rang softly, its tone spreading like ripples through the white veil of fog. As Haru and his grandfather returned home, lantern light swaying gently in their hands, Haru glanced back one last time. Though the bridge had vanished, its presence lingered. He felt it not in his eyes, but in his chest, like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. That night, as lanterns burned low and mist curled around the village roofs, Haru lay awake once more. He imagined walking across the bridge with a lantern in hand, its glow mingling with the stars reflected in the water. He imagined the river speaking, not with words but with music, and the bridge carrying him to places beyond the horizon. Sleep came slowly, as though guided by the same lanterns that lit the mist. And in his dreams, the hidden bridge waited, its boards shimmering like twilight itself, calling him gently, patiently, toward what lay ahead. Chapter 3 Whispers of the Willow Grove. Beyond the last houses of the village, where the fields gave way to wild grasses and reeds, there stood a grove of willow trees. Their long, slender branches draped down like curtains, brushing the earth in silent arcs. In the daylight, the grove was a place of shade and quiet, where birds nested and children sometimes played. But at twilight, the willows seemed to take on another life. Haru often paused at the edge of the grove, feeling the shift that came when day surrendered to dusk. The air grew cooler, the shadows longer, and the sound of the river more insistent. Tonight was no different. With the mist still lingering from the evening, the willows swayed slowly, their branches trailing like ribbons in unseen hands. He stepped carefully into the grove. The earth was soft beneath his feet, damp with the breath of the river. Every movement stirred a faint rustle, like whispers passed from tree to tree. Haru tilted his head, listening. At first, it was only the sigh of the wind. But the longer he stood still, the more he felt that the whispers were speaking, though not in words he could understand. Some branches brushed against his shoulders, light as a hand guiding him forward. Fireflies rose from the grass in small clusters, their glow weaving with the shadows. The path curved deeper into the grove, and Haru followed it without question, as though the willows themselves were leading him. At the grove's heart stood a clearing where the trees bent low, their branches almost touching across the space, forming a canopy. The air here was still, yet alive with a presence Haru could not name. He felt as if he had stepped into a chamber of secrets, a place where voices long past still lingered. He sat on a stone at the center of the clearing. The whispers grew louder, though never harsh, always gentle, always hushed. He closed his eyes, letting the sounds wash over him. In that moment, he felt as if the willows knew him, as if they had watched him since birth, their voices wrapping around his heart like a lullaby. A breeze stirred suddenly, lifting the branches into a slow dance. Between their swaying forms, Haru glimpsed the river glimmering faintly in the distance. And beyond it only for an instant the arc of the hidden bridge shimmered. It appeared like a reflection caught in the corner of the eye, both there and not there, its outline woven into the rhythm of the willows. "Do you hear them?" a voice asked softly. Haru started and turned. His grandfather had followed him, standing at the edge of the clearing, lantern light in his hand. The glow caught in the old man's eyes, which shone with a mixture of calm and memory. "Yes," Haru whispered. "But I don't understand what they say." His grandfather nodded. "You are not meant to understand with your ears. The willows speak to the heart. When the time is right, their whispers will guide you." Haru lowered his gaze, feeling both puzzled and comforted. The whispers did not fade, they only deepened, like the murmur of water beneath stone. He wondered if the willows spoke of the bridge, if they carried its secrets in their long, trailing branches. As the night deepened, the mist rose once more, wrapping around the grove like a veil. The lantern in his grandfather's hand flickered, and the clearing dimmed. Haru stood reluctantly, following him back toward the village path. Behind them, the whispers of the willows continued, as though bidding him farewell, or perhaps reminding him that he would return. That night, long after he had closed his eyes, Haru still heard them, the soft rustle of branches, the hush of leaves brushing against the earth, the sound of secrets carried on twilight winds. And beneath it all, faint but certain, was the echo of the hidden bridge, waiting quietly beyond the grove. Chapter 4: The Temple Bells at Dusk. The temple sat on a gentle rise at the northern edge of the village. Its wooden beams, darkened by centuries of rain and sun, held the fragrance of cedar and incense. Stone steps, worn smooth by countless feet, wound their way up from the village path. leading to a gate whose roof curved like a bird's wings. Haru had climbed those steps many times with his grandfather. In the mornings, they came to sweep the fallen leaves or offer rice at the altar. But it was in the evenings, when twilight draped itself over the village, that the temple revealed its deeper voice. The bell stood in its own pavilion, a great bronze shape suspended in stillness. Its surface bore faint patterns of lotus petals, and when struck with the wooden beam, its voice unfurled into the air low, resonant, unhurried. That evening, Haru and his grandfather arrived just as the last glow of the sun lingered on the horizon. A monk in simple robes bowed gently to them before stepping to the bell. With slow reverence, he pulled the beam back and released it. The sound rolled out like a wave. It was not merely heard, it was felt. The deep tone traveled through the chest, through the ground, through the very air itself. Birds fell silent in the trees, and the river seemed to pause its song to listen. The bell's voice carried across the fields, into the grove of willows, across the mist-laden waters. Haru closed his eyes. The sound wrapped around him, as though it could wash away all thoughts, leaving only stillness. And in that stillness, he saw something in his mind's eye, the faint arc of the hidden bridge, shimmering as though the bell had called it forth. He opened his eyes quickly, looking toward the river. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw it, the bridge, glowing faintly in the gathering dusk. Then the mist swirled, and it was gone. "Grandfather," Haru whispered, "does the bell call the bridge?" The old man smiled, his eyes reflecting the fading light. "The bell calls many things, Haru. It calls the heart to listen. It calls the world to remember. If you hear the bridge within its voice, then it has called you too." The bell rang again. Its tone lingered in the air like twilight itself, neither day nor night, neither beginning nor end. Haru felt as if each strike of the bell was a step, carrying him closer to something unseen but waiting. When the ringing finally faded, the silence it left was not empty but full of echoes, full of presence. The monks lit lanterns along the temple walk, their glow swaying gently in the breeze. Haru and his grandfather bowed once to the altar before beginning their walk back down the steps. From the hilltop, Haru glanced once more toward the river. The mist was thick, the night coming quickly, yet in the distance he thought he saw a flicker of light, as though lanterns were strung across the hidden bridge. It lasted only a moment, but it was enough to keep the bell's resonance alive in his chest. That night, lying on his futon, Haru listened to the echoes of the temple bell. Its deep, unhurried voice seemed to merge with the whispers of the willows, the glow of lanterns, and the river's eternal song. Together, they wove a tapestry of twilight, one that held him gently as sleep came. And in his dreams, he walked across the bridge once more, each step accompanied by the toll of the bell, steady and infinite, carrying him into the unknown. Chapter 5 Reflections on Still Water. The river was calm that evening, so calm it seemed less like water and more like a mirror spread across the earth. Not a ripple disturbed its surface. Even the breeze, which often teased the reeds at the banks, had quieted, as though it too wished to gaze upon the sky's reflection. Haru sat at the edge of the water, his legs folded beneath him, watching the world turn upside down. Clouds floated beneath him, tinted with the fading colors of sunset. A lone heron moved across the surface, its reflection gliding in perfect silence. The river had always been a companion to the village. It fed the fields, carried the voices of frogs and crickets, and gave children a place to play in the heat of summer. But at twilight, when it held the heavens in its depths, it became something else. It became a threshold, a space where earth and sky met, where what was real and what was imagined blurred into one. As Haru leaned closer, he caught his own reflection, a small face, eyes wide with wonder, dark hair stirring faintly in the evening air. But there was something more. For a brief moment, just behind his reflection, he thought he saw the faint curve of wood, the delicate arch of the hidden bridge. He blinked, and it was gone. The water only showed the sky once more. Yet his heart quickened, for he knew it had been there, if only for an instant. His grandfather's voice reached him from behind. The river remembers, Haru. It carries not only the sky but also what lies between worlds. When you gaze into it, you may glimpse more than what your eyes expect. Haru turned, seeing the old man standing with a lantern in hand. The glow touched his weathered face, making his eyes seem both bright and far away. "Did you see it too?" Haru asked. The old man smiled gently. "I have seen many things in still water. A bridge, a path, sometimes even faces I thought were gone. The river is honest, but it does not always show the same truth twice." Haru looked back at the water. The sky was deepening now, shifting from gold to violet. Stars appeared, one by one, their reflections trembling faintly on the surface. He felt as though he were gazing into two skies at once, the one above him and the one below. And somewhere in that meeting of heavens, the bridge waited. He picked up a small pebble and tossed it lightly. It skipped once, twice, before sinking with a soft plonk. Ripples spread outward, bending the stars, the clouds, and his reflection until everything blurred. For a moment, it was as though the world itself had been rewritten. When the ripples faded, the water grew calm again. The stars reappeared. The bridge did not. Yet Haru was not disappointed. Instead, he felt a quiet certainty, as though the river had whispered patience. All will come. The night grew deeper. Frogs began their chorus, and fireflies drifted low above the reeds. Haru and his grandfather sat together, saying little, letting the river speak. Its stillness was its song, and within that song lay the memory of the hidden bridge, waiting for the right step, the right heart, the right moment. When at last they rose to leave, Haru looked back once more. The water lay motionless, cradling the stars. He felt as though he could walk across it, step by step, guided not by boards of wood but by reflections of light. And in his dreams that night, he did just that, walking carefully across the mirrored river. The hidden bridge unfolding beneath his feet, carrying him into a horizon made of both sky and water. Chapter 6: The Festival of Evening Lights. Once a year, as summer leaned gently toward autumn, the village held its Festival of Lights. It was not a grand celebration, no great parades, no deafening drums, but a quiet gathering meant to honor the river that had carried them through another season. Lanterns were strung along the narrow lanes, hung from bamboo poles, and set afloat upon the water, each one a small prayer drifting into the night. On the evening of the festival, Haru joined the other children in painting lanterns with simple brushes. Some painted circles that looked like suns, others painted blossoms, while Haru drew a bridge arched and slender, lines wavering like mist. The other children laughed softly at his strange design, but he only smiled. The hidden bridge belonged to him, even if they did not see it. When darkness fell, the village came alive with gentle light. The air was fragrant with grilled fish, roasted chestnuts, and the faint sweetness of plum wine. Strings of bells chimed whenever the breeze passed, and shadows of paper lanterns flickered along the walls of homes. Families walked slowly through the lanes, dressed in cotton yukata, their voices hushed as though the night itself was sacred. At the river's edge, monks lit the first lanterns and set them carefully upon the surface of the water. They drifted in clusters, their reflections doubling their glow until the river seemed filled with stars. Children clapped softly, chasing after the lanterns with their eyes, as if each carried a secret wish. Haru placed his lantern gently upon the water. It rocked once, then floated away, its painted bridge glowing faintly in the candlelight. He watched it drift among the others, its image stretching across the river's mirrored sky. For a moment, He thought he saw the lines of his painted bridge extend outward, joining with others until they formed a path of light across the water. "Do you see it, grandfather?" Haru whispered. The old man, standing beside him, nodded. "Yes. The river remembers. Tonight, the lanterns reveal what is hidden." And there it was. Between the drifting lights, faint but undeniable, the hidden bridge shimmered. Its form was woven from mist and glow, its arch rising gracefully over the river. The lanterns seemed to cling to its outline, tracing it in light so that all who gazed closely enough might glimpse it. No one else in the crowd spoke of it. Perhaps they saw only lanterns, or perhaps they, too, chose silence, keeping the bridge in their hearts. Haru stood transfixed, feeling as if the bridge were breathing with the river, alive and listening. The festival music began, then soft flutes and the steady pulse of a single drum. The sound blended with the river's hush, the voices of the villagers, and the crackle of oil lamps. Yet to Haru, it all became one melody, the song of twilight, calling him toward the unseen path. As the night deepened, lanterns drifted farther downstream, disappearing into darkness. The glow faded, and the bridge, too, dissolved into mist once more. But its presence remained with Haru, steady and certain, like the pulse of the river. When he lay down to sleep that night, the scent of roasted chestnuts still lingering in the air, Haru dreamed not of painted lanterns, but of real stars, each one floating along a vast, endless river. And there, spanning sky and water alike, waited the hidden bridge, lit not by candles but by the gentle light of eternity. Chapter 7: The Path of Falling Leaves. Autumn crept gently into the village. The air grew cooler, the fields turned golden, and the cicadas' loud summer chorus gave way to the gentler rhythms of crickets and rustling grasses. Along the river banks, the willows shed their long strands of green, and the maples on the hillside began to burn with crimson and amber. Haru loved this season most of all. The sky seemed clearer, the evenings longer, and the village slower, as though it wished to savor each moment before winter arrived. He walked the paths often, gathering chestnuts or pausing to watch the geese fly overhead. Yet more than anything, he noticed the leaves. They fell constantly, drifting like slow rain, their colors vivid against the pale mist of morning and the violet hues of dusk. Some gathered in piles along the paths. Others floated upon the river, carried downstream in endless procession. Each leaf seemed like a small traveler, journeying without hurry, yet always finding its way. One afternoon, Haru followed the river as the leaves drifted upon it. Their gentle movement calmed him, and soon he noticed a pattern. Many of the leaves seemed to cluster in a particular current. A line of color that stretched toward the willows where the hidden bridge often appeared. Intrigued, he walked along the bank, his steps quiet upon the soft earth. The leaves formed a path across the water, a ribbon of red and gold leading toward the heart of twilight. He felt, for the first time, that the river itself was guiding him. As he neared the willow grove, the wind stirred suddenly. Leaves rose into the air, swirling around him in a slow dance. Some brushed his shoulders, others clung briefly to his sleeves before tumbling away. The air was filled with whispers, the sound of leaves speaking their gentle language as they moved together. And then, through their swirling motion, he saw it. The hidden bridge shimmered faintly ahead, its outline traced not by lanterns this time but by falling leaves. They clung briefly to its boards before sliding off into the water, as though marking its presence for those who had the eyes to see. Haru's breath caught. The bridge looked alive, almost woven from the very season itself. Its boards glowed faintly with amber light, its handrails draped with leaves that drifted down like blessings. His grandfather appeared beside him, silent as always, watching the same vision. For a long moment, they both stood in stillness, the only sound the rustle of autumn and the steady song of the river. At last, the old man spoke. "Even the leaves know the path, Haru. They fall, they drift, and yet they find their way across. We, too, are carried by unseen currents." Haru nodded, though he did not fully understand. He only knew that the bridge was closer now, as though the world itself conspired to guide him toward it. When the wind calmed, the leaves settled once more. The bridge faded, leaving only water and branches swaying gently overhead. But Haru's heart remained filled with the image and arch of twilight traced by the colors of autumn. That night, as he drifted into sleep, he dreamed of walking a path not of wood or stone, but of leaves, endless and soft, carrying him step by step toward the hidden bridge that waited in the distance, glowing like the memory of twilight itself. Chapter 8 Voices of the Autumn Wind. The winds of autumn arrived not with force, but with patience. They slipped quietly into the village, brushing across the rice fields, rattling the bamboo fences, and setting the tall pampas grass to sway in unison. Their touch carried the fragrance of dry leaves, distant smoke, and the faint sweetness of persimmons ripening in the trees. Haru loved to walk when the wind was alive. He felt it tug at his sleeves, push at his back, or sometimes whirl around him in playful circles. Yet there were evenings when the wind felt different, less playful, more solemn. On those evenings, its breath carried something deeper, as though it spoke in a language he was meant to hear. One such evening, Haru wandered alone toward the willow grove. The sun had already dipped low, and the sky was painted with streaks of rose and violet. The wind rose with the twilight, weaving through the branches, making them bow and sway like dancers. Each movement was accompanied by a whisper, and together the whispers became a chorus that seemed to call his name. He stopped, heart beating quickly. The wind brushed past his ear, carrying a sound almost like words. "Come listen." The syllables were not clear, but the meaning lingered in his chest. He closed his eyes, letting the wind surround him. It carried the rustle of distant leaves, the echo of temple bells, the murmur of water against stone. Woven into those sounds was something more, something like the low hum of a voice too ancient to belong to any one person. Opening his eyes, Haru saw the reeds along the river bend as one, their tips pointing toward the misty stretch, where the hidden bridge sometimes revealed itself. The message was clear. The wind was guiding him. As he stepped closer to the bank, the gusts strengthened. Leaves lifted from the ground and spun into the air, forming spirals of red and gold that seemed almost like lanterns rising into the dusk. Between those spirals, Haru glimpsed the faint outline of the bridge, arched, luminous, wavering as though woven from the breath of the wind itself. His grandfather's voice startled him gently. "The wind carries many voices, Haru. Some speak of storms, others of journeys. If you listen closely, it will tell you when to begin your own." Haru turned to see the old man standing nearby, robes fluttering lightly in the breeze, lantern in hand. His face was calm, yet his eyes watched Haru with quiet expectation. "The bridge," Haru whispered, pointing toward the river. But even as he spoke, the vision dissolved. The wind shifted, scattering the leaves across the ground, and the bridge faded back into mist. Only the steady current of the river remained. Haru's shoulders sagged with both longing and wonder. He wanted to step forward, to chase the glimpse he had been given, but he knew the time had not yet come. "The wind has spoken," his grandfather said softly. "You heard it. That is enough for tonight." Together, they turned back toward the village. The wind followed them, brushing their path with cool breaths, whispering still. Haru listened, carrying its voice in his heart. That night, he dreamed of walking beneath skies filled with swirling leaves, each one carrying a fragment of a voice. The wind lifted him gently, step by step, until the hidden bridge appeared vast, endless. weighting its boards humming with the same language he had heard on the breeze. Chapter 9 The First Frost. The first frost arrived quietly, as if it had been waiting at the edge of the world for just the right morning. Haru awoke to find the grass outside his window sparkling as though stars had fallen during the night. Each blade was tipped with crystal, each fallen leaf rimmed in silver. The air was sharp, almost too pure to breathe, and when he exhaled, his breath rose like smoke into the pale dawn. He walked slowly through the village, his sandals crunching softly against the frozen earth. The fields lay still beneath a thin blanket of white, and the rooftops glittered faintly where frost had settled like forgotten lace. Dogs barked lazily from doorways, their fur steaming faintly in the cold. Even the river seemed hushed, its banks edged with ice that caught the fragile light. Haru felt as though the entire world had paused. The sounds of insects and rushing water were muted, replaced by the hush of frost. Each step seemed louder, each breath deeper, as if he were walking in a dream that belonged only to him. Drawn by an unseen pull, he wandered toward the willow grove. The trees, now bare, wore their branches like long, frozen hair. The frost had touched even them, tracing their limbs with delicate silver veins. Mist rose from the river, thick and slow, curling upward as though reluctant to leave the water's surface. And then, through that mist, Haru saw it. The hidden bridge. It did not shine with lanterns, nor glow with autumn leaves. Instead, it appeared as though carved from frost itself, delicate, crystalline, yet strong. Its arch rose gently from the mist, its boards rimmed with pale light that seemed to come from nowhere. Every breath of wind sent tiny shards glittering, as if the bridge itself exhaled starlight. Haru's heart pounded. He stepped closer to the bank, eyes fixed on the vision. The cold bit at his skin, but he did not care. For the first time, the bridge looked solid enough to touch, solid enough to cross. His grandfather's voice, soft and steady, came from behind. The first frost is a doorway, Haru. It shows what lies beneath the surface. But be patient. Not every doorway is meant to be walked through at once. Haru turned. The old man stood with his hands folded into his sleeves, his breath visible in the air. His gaze, though calm, carried a depth that Haru could not fully read, half warning, half encouragement. When Haru looked back, the bridge was fading, melting into the mist like a memory too fragile to hold. The frost on the riverbank shimmered once more, then grew still. Only the sound of water remained, faint and distant beneath the fog. Though the vision had vanished, Haru's heart carried its weight. The image of the frost bridge lingered inside him like a secret flame, fragile yet unextinguishable. He knew now that the bridge would not always appear the same. It was a living presence, shifting with seasons, revealing itself in the language of nature. That night, as frost spread once again across the fields, Haru dreamed of walking across the crystalline boards of the hidden bridge. Each step rang softly, like bells made of ice. The mist parted before him, and the stars shone above and below, endless and cold yet beautiful beyond words. Chapter 10 Winter Lanterns. Winter had deepened its hold on the village. The days were shorter now, the sunlight pale and brief, the nights long and heavy with silence. Snow had fallen once already, though lightly, dusting the rooftops and weighing gently upon the bamboo fences. At dawn, smoke rose from every chimney, carrying the scent of pine wood and charcoal. But it was the nights that Haru loved most. The villagers placed lanterns outside their homes, not for celebration, but for comfort, for light against the long shadows, for warmth against the winter's breath. Their glow pooled softly upon the snow, painting golden circles on the ground, as though each flame was a small sun refusing to be extinguished by the cold. One evening, Haru walked with his grandfather along the narrow lanes. Lanterns swayed in the breeze, their paper sides crinkling faintly, their flames steady despite the cold. Each home carried its own design, some painted with plum blossoms, others with cranes, others with simple spirals that reminded Haru of river currents. When they reached the river bank, they found a small gathering of villagers. Bundled in thick coats, they stood quietly, each holding a lantern. Tonight was the night they set lights upon the river once more, not for summer's joy, but for winter's guidance. The monks lit the first lanterns, their flames sharp against the frosty air. Carefully, they placed them on the river's surface. The lanterns drifted slowly, their reflections trembling in the icy current. One by one, others followed, until the river glowed with dozens of tiny suns, each flickering against the darkness of winter. Haru lowered his own lantern onto the water. This time, he had painted not a bridge, but stars. He watched as it drifted, joining the others in a constellation that seemed to float upon the surface of the river. The glow of the lanterns reflected upward, illuminating the mist rising from the water. And then, within that mist, Haru saw it again. The hidden bridge. It rose faintly above the lanterns, its arch shimmering as though shaped from light itself. The flames seemed to cling to it, stretching into lines that traced its form. For a moment, the bridge looked woven entirely of lantern glow, fragile yet radiant. as if built from the prayers of every villager who had set a light upon the water. Haru held his breath. The cold around him disappeared, all he felt was warmth, though no fire touched his skin. The lanterns seemed to pulse gently, as though alive, guiding him step by step toward the unseen path. His grandfather's voice came softly. In the heart of winter, light becomes more than light. It becomes a promise that even in darkness, the way forward shines. Haru nodded, his eyes never leaving the bridge. But as the lanterns drifted downstream, their glow fading into the night, the vision dissolved once more. Only the river remained, dark and endless beneath the stars. Still, Haru felt no sorrow. The warmth lingered within him, a steady ember in the cold. He knew now that the bridge answered not only the turning of seasons, but also the lights kindled by human hands, their hopes, their wishes, their quiet strength against the longest night. That night, as he lay beneath his quilt, Haru dreamed of lanterns floating endlessly across a vast, frozen sky. And beyond them, glowing softly, the hidden bridge stretched out before him, as if lit by 1,000 flames that would never go out. Chapter 11 Snow over the Silent Bridge. The first true snow came in the middle of the night. Haru awoke to silence so complete that it seemed the entire world had stopped breathing. When dawn arrived, the village lay transformed rooftops curved beneath heavy blankets of white. The bamboo groves bowed under their new burden, and every narrow path disappeared into smooth expanses of untouched snow. Haru stepped outside carefully, his breath curling upward in clouds. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and smoke from morning fires. Each sound was softened: the crunch of his sandals, the creak of tree branches, the distant bark of a dog. Snow had muted everything, leaving only the quiet rhythm of falling flakes. He followed the familiar path to the river, though it was harder to see beneath the thick snow. The fields were gone, hidden beneath a seamless white cloth. The river itself moved more slowly, its surface rimmed with ice, its voice hushed. Mist rose where the current resisted the cold, drifting across the surface like a living veil. And there, through that veil, Haru saw the bridge. The hidden bridge was covered in snow, yet not weighed down by it. Its arch rose gently above the river, pure and pale, as if carved from the very winter sky. Snowflakes drifted through it, landing softly upon its boards, but the bridge remained unbroken, serene in its silence. It was as though it had always been part of the season, waiting quietly beneath every winter that had ever passed. Haru stood transfixed. The bridge seemed more real than ever, as though he might step upon it and hear the crunch of snow beneath his feet. He could almost imagine the cold seeping through his sandals, the boards firm beneath him, the air growing sharper as he crossed into the mist. His grandfather's voice reached him, low and steady. "Snow hides the world, Haru. It covers paths and fields, yet it also reveals. In silence, we see what noise has hidden." Haru turned and saw the old man standing behind him, his staff planted gently into the snow. The lantern at his side glowed faintly, its flame small against the white vastness. Yet even that tiny light seemed strong, its warmth reaching across the cold air. Together, they stood without speaking, watching the bridge. Time stretched, as though the snow had slowed its passage, each flake drifting endlessly toward the ground. The bridge shimmered faintly in the mist, a vision balanced between presence and absence. At last, a stronger wind came, carrying more snow across the river. The veil thickened, and slowly the bridge faded once more, hidden behind the falling white. When it was gone, only the river remained, its surface half ice, half current, flowing onward beneath the storm. Haru's chest ached with longing, yet also with calm. He knew the bridge had not disappeared completely. It was there, resting in silence, waiting beneath the snow just as the earth waited for spring. That night, Haru dreamed of walking across a bridge made entirely of snow, each step soundless, his footprints vanishing behind him as soon as he moved forward. Ahead, the world glowed with a soft, endless white, and he walked toward it without fear, guided by the silence itself. Chapter 12: The Long Night's Dream. The longest night of the year arrived quietly, carried on the breath of deep winter. The sun set early, leaving the village wrapped in darkness long before the evening meal was finished. Even the lanterns seemed small against the vastness of the night, their glow trembling like fragile sparks. Haru lay beneath his quilt, listening to the stillness. Outside, snow fell steadily, each flake adding to the heavy silence that pressed against the wooden walls of the house. The world seemed asleep, yet Haru's eyes remained open, searching the dim light of the ceiling. At last, drowsiness came, slow and heavy, like a tide. But as sleep gathered him, it carried him not into darkness but into light. He found himself standing beside the river. Snow no longer fell instead, the air shimmered faintly as though dusted with starlight. The water reflected not the moon but the entire sky, filled with countless stars that burned brighter than he had ever seen. He looked down and felt as if he were gazing into an infinite ocean of constellations. And there it was, the hidden bridge. It stretched across the star-filled river, its boards glowing faintly like frost lit from within. The arch rose higher than ever before, reaching toward the heavens, as though it connected Earth not to the far bank but to the sky itself. The bridge was both real and unreal, both solid and transparent, as if woven from dreams and silence. Haru took a step forward. His sandals made no sound against the boards. Another step, and another. The bridge held him firmly, yet he felt weightless, as though the stars themselves carried him. The air grew warmer with each step, filled with a hum that seemed to come from the bridge itself. Ahead, he saw a figure waiting. It was his grandfather, though younger, his back straight, his hair dark, his eyes shining. The sight filled Haru's chest with both comfort and wonder. "You've come far," the figure said, though the words were less heard than felt. "But the journey is not only yours to walk. The bridge waits for those who listen, those who dream, those who carry stillness in their hearts." Haru wanted to ask what lay beyond the bridge, but the words would not form. The hum of the boards grew louder, blending with the stars until the entire sky seemed to sing. He stepped closer, but just as he reached the center of the bridge, the stars rippled, as if disturbed by unseen hands. The vision wavered. The figure of his grandfather dissolved into mist, and the boards beneath his feet faded, leaving him suspended in light. Haru gasped and awoke. He was back beneath his quilt, the sound of the winter wind at the door, the lantern's glow faint against the walls. Yet his heart beat quickly, as though he had truly walked upon the bridge. His hands trembled, remembering the feeling of boards beneath them, the hum of stars in his chest. He sat in the darkness for a long time, listening to the silence of the long night. Outside, snow still fell, endless and quiet. And though he was awake, part of him remained upon the hidden bridge, standing in the glow of stars that stretched forever, waiting to be crossed. Chapter 13: The River Beneath Ice. Winter had grown heavy by the time the river froze. Each morning, Haru awoke to the sound of silence deeper than before, as if the world itself were holding its breath. The village roofs sagged beneath thick snow, paths became narrow. Tunnels between walls of white, and smoke rose endlessly from chimneys, drifting slowly into the still sky. When Haru reached the river, he found it sheathed in ice. At first glance, it seemed asleep, sealed and unmoving, a sheet of pale glass stretching from bank to bank. Yet as he leaned closer, he heard the faint murmur of water beneath. The river still lived, still traveled, though hidden. The ice was not smooth. Cracks ran like veins across its surface, catching the sunlight in strange, shifting patterns. Sometimes the ice moaned, long and low, as though the river was speaking through its frozen skin. Haru knelt beside it, listening carefully, and felt the sound vibrate in his chest. "The river never truly stops," his grandfather said, appearing behind him. His breath hung white in the air, his staff planted firmly in the snow. "Even when it seems still, it moves beneath, carrying secrets the surface cannot show." Haru nodded, his eyes tracing the patterns of frost that spread like branches across the ice. For a moment, he thought he saw something more, a curve too perfect to be chance. An arc like the outline of a bridge pressed just beneath the frozen skin of the river. He pressed his palm against the ice. It was bitterly cold, but beneath it, he swore he felt a pulse steady, patient, like a heartbeat waiting to be heard. His chest quickened. "Grandfather," Haru whispered, "the bridge, it's under there." The old man's eyes softened, though he did not look surprised. "Perhaps. Or perhaps the river shows you what you are ready to see. Ice only hides what is alive. The bridge is no different." As twilight fell, the ice began to glow faintly. The lanterns from the village reflected across its surface, stretching into long golden threads that trembled with each gust of wind. Between those trembling lines, Haru saw it again, the faintest image of the hidden bridge. As though the ice itself had captured its reflection and held it prisoner beneath its frozen skin. The vision lasted only moments. As the wind rose, snow swept across the river, erasing the lights, covering the ice in white silence once more. Yet Haru's heart remained full. He knew the bridge was there, not gone but waiting, like the river itself, flowing unseen beneath its frozen veil. That night, Haru dreamed of walking across ice so clear he could see the river rushing beneath him. With each step, the ice became less solid, more like glass, until he was no longer walking on frozen water but on the very surface of the hidden bridge. Beneath him, the river sang. Above him, the stars echoed the same song. And with every note, he felt himself drawn closer to the other side. Chapter 14 Footprints Toward Dawn. The night had been long and heavy with snow. By the time dawn's first light touched the village, the roofs and paths were buried once again, every trace of the day before erased. The world looked newborn, hushed beneath its soft white blanket. Haru rose before the others, restless from dreams he could not remember. The air inside the house was still, the faint glow of embers in the hearth the only warmth. Wrapping himself in a thick coat, he stepped outside. The cold met him immediately, sharp and pure, filling his lungs like crystal. The eastern sky was only beginning to pale, streaks of silver and rose pressing against the horizon. Snowflakes clung to his hair and lashes as he moved, his sandals crunching into the fresh powder. No other footprints marked the path. The entire village seemed asleep. Haru felt as though he was the only one awake in the world. He followed the narrow lane toward the river, his small steps leaving a line of prints across the untouched snow. As he walked, the dawn grew brighter. The pale light touched the snow until it shimmered faintly, glowing like fields of salt and pearl. Haru stopped once, turning to look at the trail behind him. His footprints curved gently across the whiteness, the only sign of passage, like a path written just for him. When he reached the willow grove, the river lay silent beneath its shell of ice and snow. The mist of morning rose faintly, curling in slow shapes above the surface. Haru's footprints continued forward, leading him to the water's edge, as though guiding him toward something unseen. And there, between the pale sky and the white river, the hidden bridge appeared. It did not shine with lanterns or shimmer with frost. Instead, it revealed itself through the simple line of footprints, each one glowing faintly as though lit from within. The steps did not stop at the water's edge, they continued across the river, vanishing into the mist. Haru's breath caught. It was as if someone had walked ahead of him, showing him the way across. He knelt, touching one of the glowing prints. It was warm against his cold fingers, as though it held the memory of life. His heart pounded with the sense that he was not alone, that others, long ago or perhaps yet to come, had walked this path, their steps echoing through time. His grandfather's voice came softly behind him. Every dawn writes its own path, Haru. The snow records where we have been, but it also points toward where we are meant to go. Haru turned to see the old man, staff in hand, his breath rising in the cold. His eyes shone with a quiet knowing. When Haru looked back, the glowing footprints faded slowly, melting into the snow until only his own steps remained at the river bank. The bridge dissolved once more, hidden behind the rising light of dawn. Yet Haru felt no sorrow. The footprints had shown him enough. He knew now that the hidden bridge was not only something to be seen, it was something to be followed, one step at a time, as dawn followed night. That morning, as the sun rose fully over the village, Haru dreamed with his eyes open. In his mind, he walked across glowing snow, his footprints, joining countless others that led across the bridge and into a horizon painted with the light of endless morning. Chapter 15 The Silence of Midwinter. The heart of winter came without announcement, slipping into the village as silently as falling snow. Days grew so short that twilight seemed to arrive before the morning had fully opened its eyes. Nights stretched endlessly, each one filled with a stillness so vast that even the faintest sound seemed like an intrusion. Haru noticed it first in the way the air carried itself. There was no bird song, no insect hum, not even the rustle of branches. The world seemed suspended, wrapped in an invisible hush. When he walked, the crunch of his sandals on frozen snow echoed too loudly, as though the silence resisted being disturbed. The river was nearly hidden beneath thick ice. Snow covered most of its surface, leaving only small dark cracks where the current whispered faintly below. Haru stood upon the bank, watching the mist curl upward into the pale sky. The silence pressed against him, heavy yet strangely gentle, like a blanket laid across the earth. It was in this silence that he felt the bridge. He did not see it at once, but he sensed it an arch stretching through the stillness, not of wood or frost or light, but of quiet itself. The hidden bridge was there, not painted upon the water, not traced by lanterns or leaves, but formed entirely of silence. Every breath of stillness around him shaped its boards, every pause in the world built its handrails. Haru closed his eyes, listening. The longer he stood, the more the silence deepened, until it seemed to hum with its own presence. It was not empty, it was full, vast, alive. In that fullness, he felt the bridge become real. When he opened his eyes, he saw it faintly, an arch of pale shadow stretching over the frozen river, delicate yet unshakable. It did not shine. It did not move. It simply was, as eternal as the silence that formed it. His grandfather's voice, soft as snowfall, came beside him. Midwinter is the still heart of the year, Haru. In silence, all things are held. The bridge, too, rests here waiting, unchanging, beyond sound or time. Haru turned to see the old man, his face lit faintly by the cold glow of dawn. No lantern hung from his hand this time, none was needed. The silence itself was enough. Together, they stood without speaking, without moving, letting the stillness seep into their bones. Time seemed to vanish. The bridge shimmered faintly in the frozen air, stretching across a world that had forgotten motion. At last, a crow called somewhere far away. Its cry cracked the silence like a pebble striking glass. In an instant, the vision faded, the bridge dissolving back into the hush of the frozen river. Yet Haru was not disappointed. He carried the silence with him, deep inside, a place he could return to whenever noise clouded his heart. The bridge had shown itself not through sight, but through stillness, and that was a gift he would never lose. That night, as Haru drifted to sleep, he dreamed of walking across a bridge made of nothing but silence. Each step left no sound, no mark, no echo. And on the far side of the bridge, waiting in the endless stillness, was a horizon so quiet it felt like eternity itself. Chapter 16 The Hidden Bridge at New Year's Dawn. The last night of the old year passed with quiet rituals. Lanterns flickered in the village windows, their light trembling against the heavy dark. Families gathered indoors, speaking softly, their words carried gently like offerings to the turning of time. Even the snow seemed to pause, falling more slowly, as if to honor the moment when one year closed and another opened. Haru lay awake longer than usual, listening to the faint toll of a temple bell drifting from far across the fields. Its deep voice rolled through the valley, slow and steady, each strike echoing like the heartbeat of the earth. He counted them until sleep finally took him. When his eyes opened again, it was to a pale horizon. The first dawn of the new year had arrived. The air inside the house was sharp with cold, his breath rising faintly as he slipped from his quilt. Without hesitation, he wrapped himself in his thickest coat and stepped outside. The world was hushed, as though waiting. Snow blanketed the roofs and paths, smooth and untouched. The eastern sky glowed faintly, painted in strokes of silver, lavender, and the thinnest thread of gold. Haru's sandals pressed into the snow, leaving a fresh trail as he walked toward the river. His grandfather was already there, standing tall with his staff planted in the drift. He turned as Haru approached, his eyes reflecting the rising light. "It is a gift, Haru," he said softly. "The first morning of the year. The earth begins again, and so do we." Haru nodded, his chest full though he could not explain why. Together, they watched as the sun slowly crept above the horizon. Its light touched the snow, setting it aglow with a brilliance that seemed almost otherworldly. The ice upon the river glittered, each shard catching the dawn as though holding fragments of fire. And then Haru saw it, the hidden bridge. This time, it was not faint or fragile. It rose boldly from the mist, each board radiant with the light of the New Year's sun. Frost along its railings caught the glow, sparkling like woven jewels. The arch stretched higher than he had ever seen, not only across the river but seeming to join heaven and earth. Haru's breath caught. He stepped forward, his footprints crisp against the untouched snow. The bridge pulsed with light, as though alive, as though it too was awakening with the new year. His grandfather placed a hand gently on his shoulder. Every dawn is a crossing, Haru. The old year lies behind us. The new waits ahead. The bridge is not only a passage, it is a promise. The boy gazed at the shining path. In his heart, he longed to step onto it, to walk across the arch into the horizon of golden light. But even without moving, he felt changed. The sight of the bridge, glowing with renewal, filled him with a quiet strength. As the sun climbed higher, the brilliance softened. The bridge faded, dissolving back into the river and mist, leaving only the glitter of ice and the steady light of morning. But the promise remained, etched deep within Haru's chest. The new year had begun. And with it, the journey toward the hidden bridge continued, step by step, dawn by dawn. Chapter 17 The Lanterns in the Snow. The village prepared for the night festival with quiet care. It was a tradition that had outlived memory, passed down through generations on the first full moon of the new year. Lanterns would be lit and placed upon the snow, their flames guiding both the living and the unseen. Haru helped his mother ready the lanterns. Each one was simple wooden frames wrapped in paper, brushed with strokes of ink showing pine, cranes, or waves. He loved the way the inked shapes glowed once the candle inside was lit, alive with gentle fire. When dusk arrived, the villagers stepped outside with their lanterns. The snow was deep, but paths had been cleared, narrow trails winding between houses. One by one, lanterns were placed along the paths, their flames trembling against the still air. Soon, the village glowed like a constellation resting upon the earth. Haru carried his own lantern carefully, his mittened hands cupped around its warmth. His grandfather walked beside him, his staff pressing softly into the snow. Together, they left the last houses behind and made their way toward the river. The field lay wide and white beneath the moon. There, the villagers planted lanterns into the snow in long, curving lines. From above, it must have looked like threads of fire weaving across the frozen land. From where Haru stood, it seemed as though the stars themselves had fallen to earth and now burned quietly at his feet. When the final lantern was lit, silence descended. The only sound was the faint crackle of candles and the soft shifting of the wind. Haru gazed at the glowing paths, his breath misting before him. And then, slowly, he saw it. The lanterns did not scatter at random. Their lines curved gently, gracefully, until they formed the outline of an arch, the hidden bridge traced in firelight upon the snow. It rose across the field, stretching toward the river, the flames marking its railings, its boards, its ascent. Haru's chest tightened with awe. He stepped closer, his lantern casting a faint glow upon the snow at his feet. Each flame seemed to call him onward, guiding him across an invisible span. "Do you see, Haru?" his grandfather whispered, his eyes reflecting the lanterns. "The bridge appears wherever hearts are ready to follow its path. Tonight, the village itself carries the light of passage." The boy nodded, unable to speak. The flames wavered gently, as though bowing to the wind, yet none went out. The bridge of lanterns glowed steadily, serene and patient. As the moon rose high, the villagers began to drift home, leaving their lanterns burning in the snow. Haru lingered, reluctant to leave the shining path. He watched until his eyes grew heavy, the flames blurring into a river of light. That night, he dreamed he was walking across the lantern bridge, each step warmed by fire. The snow beneath glowed like polished glass, and above him the moon poured its silver blessing upon the way. On the far side, shadows waited, not dark but gentle, as though welcoming him home. When he awoke, the lanterns were gone, melted into smoke and memory. Yet the image remained, vivid in his heart, a bridge made not of wood or frost, but of countless small flames, each one a promise of guidance through the snowbound night. Chapter 18 Shadows Beneath the Bridge. The snow had grown deep, so deep that the paths to the river were narrow corridors of white. Haru followed them carefully, his boots crunching, his breath rising in clouds that quickly vanished into the still air. Above, the sky was pale and heavy with unfallen snow, the kind of sky that seemed to press the world down into silence. The river lay mostly hidden beneath its ice. Yet there were places, small and secret, where the current still broke through. One such place lay beneath the willow grove. Haru knelt there, peering into the dark water where no snow rested. At first, he saw nothing but his own reflection, his round cheeks reddened by cold, his breath fogging the surface. But as he leaned closer, the water seemed to deepen. Shadows moved beneath, not the drift of leaves or the passing of fish, but shapes more deliberate, more solemn. The outlines formed slowly, as though drawn in ink upon the surface. Boards, curved railings, and pillars rooted in the unseen depths. Haru's heart quickened. It was the hidden bridge reflected not above the river but within it, shadowed beneath the ice. He held his breath. The vision trembled with each ripple, fragile as smoke, yet undeniable. The shadows stretched across the current, forming an arch so vast it seemed to lead not to the far bank but to places far beyond sight. A voice stirred behind him, low and calm. "Not all bridges rise into the sky, Haru. Some lie beneath, waiting in silence, hidden in the places we do not often look. It was his grandfather, standing with a staff in hand. His gaze was fixed upon the water, his expression unreadable, as though he too saw the shadows stretching far beyond the river. Haru whispered, "Is it real? Or only reflection?" The old man's breath drifted white in the cold. What is reflection, if not another way of being? The bridge shows itself in many forms: light, silence, shadow. Each is true. Each is a path. The boy's fingers brushed the icy edge of the river. The shadows swayed gently, neither vanishing nor solidifying. They seemed to wait, patient as the flow itself, content to exist in the space between what was seen and what was unseen. Twilight fell quickly, and the water darkened until the shadows became nearly indistinguishable from the river itself. Haru stood reluctantly, casting one last glance at the trembling shapes. Though they faded, the impression remained etched in his heart, deep as the current below. That night, his dreams carried him beneath the river's surface. He walked among flowing shadows, each one a board of the bridge, each ripple a step. Above him, ice glittered faintly like a roof of stars. Beneath him, darkness stretched endlessly and kindly. When he woke, the sound of the river still whispered in his ears, carrying with it the memory of the bridge that waited, unseen, in the silence beneath the water. Chapter 19: The Whispering Pines. The pines stood tall at the edge of the village, their needles dusted white with snow. They had grown there longer than anyone could remember, roots gripping the earth, branches rising into the pale winter sky. Haru had always felt a quiet reverence when walking among them, as though each tree held a memory far older than his own. On this day, the wind was restless. It moved through the forest in long breaths, sighing and circling, stirring loose snow into drifting clouds. The trunks creaked faintly, but it was the needles that sang, thousands of them, brushing and bending, weaving a music that seemed both endless and fragile. Haru stopped beneath one of the tallest pines. He tilted his head and listened. At first, the sound was only wind, wild and cold. But as he grew still, he heard something more: a rhythm, almost like words hidden in the breath of branches. It was not speech in the conventional sense, but it carried meaning nonetheless. A calling, gentle yet insistent, like a voice that had waited a long time to be heard. "The bridge," Haru whispered. His lips trembled with the thought, though no one else was there to hear. The wind shifted, sweeping through the trees. The pines swayed, their needles brushing in waves. The sound deepened, like a chorus. Haru closed his eyes, and for a moment he saw it clearly, the hidden bridge, arching not across the river but through the forest itself. Its boards were woven from sound, its railings shaped by the rise and fall of the wind. Each whispering note was a step, carrying him forward into unseen places. His grandfather's staff tapped softly against the snow. Haru opened his eyes to find him standing nearby, his face calm yet alert, as though he too had been listening. "You hear it, don't you?" Haru asked. The old man nodded slowly. "The pines are keepers of voices. They remember storms, winds, seasons. In their song, the bridge speaks too, if one listens with patience." The wind swelled, rushing through the grove, shaking the branches until snow fell in soft cascades. The sound filled Haru's chest, resonant and vast, as though he himself had become part of the chorus. For a heartbeat, he felt his feet lift, his spirit carried along the unseen bridge of sound. Then the wind softened. The whispers faded into silence, leaving only the faint crackle of snow beneath his boots. The trees stood still once more, guardians of a secret too large for words. That night, Haru dreamed of walking across a bridge made entirely of sound. Each step was a note, each breath a chord, and the further he walked, the more the music deepened. At the far end, the forest opened into a horizon of pure song, vast and eternal. When he woke, the memory lingered like an echo, soft but unbroken, a reminder that the hidden bridge spoke not only through light or shadow, but through the voices of the world itself. Chapter 20: The Frozen Lantern. The storm had swept through the valley for 2 days without pause. Snow fell in sheets, thick and relentless, erasing paths and burying rooftops until the world itself seemed to vanish beneath its weight. Haru stayed indoors, listening to the wind howl around the wooden walls, each gust rattling the shutters like a restless spirit. When at last the storm quieted, the village emerged slowly from its shelter. Haru followed his grandfather into the whitened world. Drifts rose higher than his waist, paths were tunnels of snow cut by careful hands. The air was sharp, the silence immense, broken only by the creak of wood beneath the weight of ice. It was then that Haru saw it, a lantern half buried in the snow near the edge of the path. Its wooden frame was crusted with frost, its paper walls stiff and translucent like thin ice. Yet within, against all odds, a small flame still lived. He hurried toward it, kneeling beside the frozen lantern. The flame flickered weakly but did not die, casting a faint glow into the icy shell that enclosed it. The light refracted, scattering into tiny shards of gold that shimmered like stars caught in glass. Haru's chest filled with quiet wonder. "Grandfather, it's still burning." The old man's eyes softened. He leaned on his staff, watching the fragile flame with reverence. Even in the coldest storm, some lights endure. The bridge, too, is such a light hidden, perhaps, but never gone. Haru reached out, brushing frost from the lantern's side. For a moment, as the ice cleared, he saw something strange. Reflected in the thin film of ice was not just the flame, but the faint outline of an arch, a curve too perfect, too deliberate. The hidden bridge revealed itself within the frozen lantern, as though the fire inside carried its memory. His breath caught. The glow expanded in his vision, becoming boards lit by fire, railings etched in light. For a heartbeat, he was standing upon it, snow falling around him, yet the flame guiding his every step. Then the wind shifted, and the vision dissolved. Only the small flame remained, trembling bravely in its frozen cage. Haru lifted the lantern gently from the snow. Its warmth was faint against his gloves, but it was enough. Carrying it back to the house, he felt as though he bore not just a fragile light, but the promise of the bridge itself, the assurance that even in the deepest winter, a path still waited, illuminated by a flame that refused to die. That night, the lantern sat by his bedside. Haru drifted into sleep with its glow casting soft patterns across the walls. In his dreams, the flame grew into a river of fire, stretching across the snowbound valley, carrying him steadily toward the unseen far shore. Chapter 21 echoes across the snowfield. The storm had passed, leaving behind a silence so vast that it seemed to stretch farther than sight itself. The valley lay buried under snow, smooth and unbroken like a sea of white. Haru followed his grandfather across the open field, their steps crunching softly, the only sound in a world that seemed to have forgotten noise. The air was sharp, each breath stinging his throat, yet it carried a clarity unlike any other. The sky above was pale blue, thin clouds drifting like brushstrokes of ink across paper. Haru felt small within such emptiness, as though he were walking across the surface of a dream. "Listen," his grandfather said, stopping suddenly. Haru stilled. The silence pressed in, deep and endless. Then the old man lifted his staff and tapped it gently against the snow. The sound was soft, almost nothing, but it did not vanish. It stretched outward, repeating faintly, carried away into the distance, then returning, dim but unmistakable. An echo. Haru's eyes widened. He cupped his hands and called into the empty field. Halloo! The cry flew across the snow and came back moments later, thinner, softened, yet still his own. Again and again he tried, laughing as each echo returned like a ghost of his voice. The vast whiteness answered faithfully, as though it held his words and offered them back with care. But as he grew quiet, he noticed something strange. Not every echo was the same. Some returned slightly altered, shaped not like his voice but like another's. Deeper, older, carrying a tone he did not recognize. He turned quickly to his grandfather. "Did you hear that?" The old man nodded slowly, his eyes far away. "The snow remembers more than we do. In its silence, echoes linger, voices of those who once walked here. Sometimes the bridge carries them back to us." Haru shivered, though not from the cold. He listened again. The field stretched vast and still, but within its emptiness, he felt a presence, something woven into the echoes, like footsteps upon an unseen span. He closed his eyes, and in the space between sound and silence, he saw the hidden bridge. It arched not across water this time but across the snow itself, each board a returning echo, each railing a voice carried on the wind. The bridge was made of memory, of words spoken and returned, of the past calling gently into the present. When he opened his eyes, the snowfield was as blank as before. Yet the sense remained, the bridge was there, hidden in the distance, its form carved by sound that traveled across silence and returned. That night, Haru dreamed of standing on the bridge of echoes. He spoke a word, and it came back to him, multiplied, softened, deepened, until it no longer sounded like his own. Each echo was a step, carrying him farther, guiding him across the snowfield toward voices waiting on the far shore. Chapter 22: The Night of Falling Stars. The night was clear, sharper than glass. A silence hung over the valley so deep that even the river seemed to have stopped breathing. Haru followed his grandfather up a small hill beyond the willow grove, their lantern swaying faintly in the frost-touched dark. The old man had told him, "Tonight, the sky will open." When they reached the top, the village lay behind them like a cluster of faint sparks, its lanterns no match for the vastness of the heavens above. The stars burned bright and cold, scattered in uncountable patterns. Haru tilted his head back, his breath catching. It was as if the entire sky had spilled silver across its canvas. Then, the first star fell. A streak of white fire tore across the blackness, vanishing almost as soon as it appeared. Haru gasped, eyes wide. Another followed, then another, until the night seemed alive with motion. Dozens of stars arced and vanished. their trails lingering faintly like glowing brushstrokes across the dark. The boy felt the ground shift beneath him, not truly moving, but as though the hill itself were part of the sky's river, flowing endlessly with the stars. His grandfather spoke softly, his voice nearly lost in the hush. Each falling star is a step, Haru. Tonight, the bridge stretches across the heavens themselves. Haru blinked, and suddenly he saw it. The hidden bridge arched across the night sky, vast and luminous, its boards formed of falling stars. Each streak of light joined the next, shaping railings of fire and a pathway of silver that connected horizon to horizon. His heart pounded. For a moment, he felt weightless, as if his feet might leave the snow and carry him upward onto that radiant span. The stars rained down endlessly, and the bridge glowed brighter with each one, alive with motion, alive with promise. The boy whispered, "It's beautiful." The old man nodded, his eyes reflecting the burning sky. The bridge is not bound to earth or water. It lives wherever a passage is needed. Tonight, it carries the stars themselves. Haru reached out his hand, as though he might touch the silver trail of a falling star. For an instant, his palm glowed with its light, and he felt a warmth that spread through his chest, gentle, fleeting, yet profound. The stars continued to fall long into the night, until Haru's eyes grew heavy. When at last he slept, his dreams carried him across that radiant arch. Each step beneath his feet was a burning star, and with every stride, the sky itself seemed to sing. On the far side of the bridge, he saw not darkness, but a horizon blooming with dawn. When he woke the next morning, the stars were gone, the sky pale and still. Yet the vision remained inside him, a bridge of fire across the heavens, guiding him toward places beyond sight. Chapter 23: The Bridge of Silent Footsteps. After the night of falling stars, the valley lay under a still sky, pale and cloudless. The snow stretched wide and unbroken, gleaming like silk in the faint winter sun. Haru rose early, restless with the memory of starlight, and found himself drawn once more toward the open fields beyond the village. The world was quiet, every sound muted by the snow. His footsteps pressed into the surface without a sound, leaving behind neat impressions that trailed into the distance. Haru paused and looked back. The prints seemed darker than the snow, clear against the white, each one a small mark of his passage. He walked on, his steps steady. Before long, the prints formed a line behind him, curving gently across the snowfield. Something in the curve caught his eye. It was too graceful to be chance, too deliberate. When he turned, he saw it fully, his footsteps, joined together, traced the faint shape of an arc. Haru's breath caught. The line of prints rose and curved like the boards of the hidden bridge itself, stretching not across water but across the field of snow. The arch was incomplete, yet the direction was clear. It led toward the horizon, toward something unseen. His grandfather's voice broke the silence behind him. "Every step you take shapes the path, Haru. The bridge does not appear all at once. It is built by footsteps, quiet and steady." Haru turned to see the old man, staff in hand, following his prints. His face was calm, but there was a light in his eyes, as though he too saw the bridge forming beneath the boy's steps. They continued together, side by side. Their combined footprints curved further, stretching outward until the arch grew larger, clearer, unmistakable. No sound rose from their passage, yet the snow held their presence faithfully, recording each step in silence. At last, Haru stopped. The arch of footprints extended before him like the shadow of a bridge across the snow. He felt his chest swell with a quiet certainty. He was walking the hidden bridge, step by step, with each footprint becoming part of its design. Twilight began to fall, and the shadows of their prints lengthened across the white. For a moment, the last light of the sun caught the snow, and the line of footprints glowed faintly, as though lit from within. The hidden bridge shone in silence, a path made not of wood or frost or stars, but of footsteps simple, human, and enduring. That night, Haru dreamed of walking barefoot across snow that left no sound, only marks of light. Each footprint shimmered like a star upon the ground, and as he crossed, the bridge extended itself into infinity, carrying him onward into the quiet horizon. Chapter 24 The Moonlit Crossing. The night came silver and still, the kind of winter night when even the stars seemed hushed by the brilliance of the moon. It rose high above the valley, round and radiant, casting its glow over the snow until the entire landscape gleamed like glass. Haru and his grandfather walked quietly to the river bank. The water was half frozen, its surface a mosaic of ice and current, reflecting the moonlight in shards of silver. Willows bowed under the weight of snow, their branches brushing the surface of the frozen patches as if painting ripples in light. Haru stood at the edge, breath clouding in the cold, and gazed across the water. There, rising from the mist and moonlight, the hidden bridge appeared. This time it was not faint, not half seen. It stood clear and luminous, each board shining like a polished pearl, each railing outlined in pale silver. The bridge stretched from bank to bank, arching gently as though it had always belonged to the night. His grandfather rested a hand on his shoulder. The moon unveils what the sun cannot. Tonight, Haru, the path lies open. Haru felt his heart race. He stepped forward, his foot touching the first board. It was solid beneath him, though it shimmered like light. The air grew stiller, as though the entire world held its breath. The boy moved carefully, each step ringing silently in his chest, though no sound reached his ears. The boards glowed brighter beneath his feet, and the river below caught their reflection, so that two bridges existed at once, one above, one mirrored in the flowing silver. As he walked farther, he glanced back. His grandfather stood at the bank, watching with calm eyes, the lantern in his hand glowing like a smaller moon. The old man did not follow, but neither did he need to. His presence was steady, a guardian at the threshold. Halfway across, Haru paused. The river shimmered beneath him, and the moon hung directly overhead, casting its circle of light like a gateway. In that glow, Haru felt himself lighter, as if each step lifted not only his body but his spirit. He thought he heard faint sounds, the echo of sparrows' wings, the whisper of voices long gone, the memory of the falling stars. All of them seemed woven into the boards of the bridge, carrying him gently forward. When he reached the far side, the mist thickened. For a moment, he saw shapes within it, arches, gardens, pathways lit by lanterns, yet they faded as quickly as they came. The far shore was not ready to reveal itself fully. Haru stood at the edge, heart pounding. Then, slowly, he turned back. The bridge still glowed beneath the moon, a path carved from silence and light. When he returned to the river bank, his grandfather smiled softly. "You have crossed, Haru. Not with distance, but with spirit. That is enough for tonight." The boy looked once more at the bridge. Already it was fading, becoming mist, becoming moonlight, until only the reflection on the water remained. Yet within him, it was brighter than ever, solid, enduring, eternal. That night, as he drifted into sleep, Haru dreamed of walking across 1,000 bridges of light. Each one leading him closer to a dawn he could not yet see, but knew was waiting. Chapter 25 Whispers beneath the ice. The river lay frozen, its surface a sheet of pale glass that reflected the winter sky. Haru walked carefully along the bank, the snow crunching underfoot. His breath drifted in the air like smoke, and silence hung heavy, broken only by the faint groan of ice shifting beneath its weight. He stopped, kneeling by a patch where the ice was thinner. Peering down, he expected only darkness. Instead, he saw faint streams of light moving beneath the surface, slow, wavering ribbons that glowed as if the river itself held memories within. Then he heard it. At first, it was little more than a murmur, a vibration carried through the frozen surface. He pressed his ear close, and the whisper grew clearer. Voices, soft and overlapping, like many people speaking at once, though none distinct. The tones carried neither fear nor warning, but a calm rhythm, like chanting from beneath the earth. "Do you hear it, grandfather?" Haru whispered. The old man stood nearby, leaning on his staff. His gaze softened. The river remembers. Even in sleep, it speaks. The bridge listens to these voices, for they are the footsteps of time itself. Haru felt a shiver run through him, not from the cold, but from the certainty that the whispers belonged not only to the past, but to travelers who had once crossed the hidden bridge. The ice, he realized, was not a barrier, it was a veil, thin enough for echoes to pass through. The whispers grew stronger for a moment. He thought he caught fragments of words beyond waiting return, then, just as suddenly, the sounds faded, leaving only the deep silence of winter. Haru stood, his breath fogging the air. The frozen river no longer seemed lifeless. It was alive with memory, alive with the echo of countless crossings. And somewhere within it, the hidden bridge stirred. Chapter 26: The Keeper of Winter's Gate. That night, Haru dreamed of a vast gate made of ice and stone, towering at the edge of a snowbound plain. Its surface gleamed with the light of countless stars, yet no path led through it. He stood before it, uncertain, when a figure emerged from the drifting snow. The figure was tall, cloaked in white fur, its face hidden beneath a hood lined with frost. In one hand, it held a staff tipped with crystal that glowed faintly like a frozen lantern. Its presence was neither threatening nor welcoming, it simply was, like the season itself. "Who are you?" Haru asked in the dream. His voice trembled, though not with fear. The figure's answer came like the rustle of wind across ice. "I am the keeper of Winter's Gate. I guard the threshold where one season ends and another begins. Few approach, for the way is cold, and the bridge remains hidden." Haru's heart quickened. Then is this where the hidden bridge lies? The keeper raised the crystal staff, pointing beyond the gate. The bridge waits in many forms. But to cross in winter, one must bear the silence within, as deep as snow itself. "Do you carry such silence, child?" Haru tried to answer, but no words came. His voice dissolved into the cold air. Yet the keeper nodded slowly, as if this silence was answer enough. The gate shimmered, its icy surface rippling like water. For a heartbeat, Haru glimpsed the faint outline of an arch beyond it, glowing with pale blue fire. Then the vision vanished. and the keeper lowered the staff. "Not yet," the figure said. But soon. When Haru awoke, the moonlight lay across his futon like a frozen path. He could still feel the keeper's gaze, steady and patient, waiting for the moment he would be ready to step beyond the winter's gate. Chapter 27 Shadows in the Snowdrift. The snowdrifts lay piled high, sculpted by the wind into strange shapes, curves like sleeping animals, ridges like frozen waves. Haru walked carefully through them, his staff tapping at the hard crust. The world was so white, so empty, that he almost believed he was alone. Then he saw a shadow moving within the drift. It slid across the whiteness without a source, too sharp and dark to be a trick of light. Haru froze, heart pounding. The shadow stretched into the shape of a figure tall, thin, faceless. It stood still, as though waiting. His grandfather's voice reached him from behind. "Do not fear the shadows, Haru. They are only memories without form. The snow carries them when the past cannot rest." The figure did not move closer, but Haru felt its gaze, silent and deep. He bowed slightly, and the shadow bowed in return. Then, as the wind shifted, it faded into the drift, leaving only a ripple of darkness in the snow. Haru walked on, the silence heavier now. Yet he carried no fear. The shadow had not been a threat but a reminder that the bridge carried even the forms of those who lingered between worlds. Chapter 28 The River of Sleeping Stars. That night, the sky was cloudless again. Haru lay awake, unable to rest, and wandered to the riverbank. The ice gleamed faintly under starlight, but something within it shimmered more brightly. Peering down, Haru gasped. Beneath the frozen surface flowed not water, but stars. Tiny lights drifted slowly as though the river had captured the night sky within itself. They moved in silence, gliding like fish of fire, gathering in clusters, scattering, then merging again. It was a river of sleeping stars, their glow faint but steady. His grandfather stood beside him, gazing into the depths. "Each star has crossed once, Haru. The bridge carries them as it carries us. When they fall, they do not die. They find their way here, to rest until they are called again." Haru pressed his hand against the ice. A star drifted close, pausing as though in answer. For an instant, he felt its warmth seep through the frozen barrier, a pulse of memory and light. That night, he dreamed of wading into the river of stars. Their glow surrounding him, carrying him upward, until he walked not on boards, but on constellations woven into the shape of a bridge. Chapter 29 The Bell Beneath the Frost. Morning came with a strange sound. Haru awoke to hear a faint ringing, soft, steady, distant. He followed it through the snow until he reached the base of a hill. There, half buried in frost, lay a small shrine. Its roof sagged under snow, but within hung a bronze bell, covered in ice. Yet still it rang, though no hand touched it. The sound was clear and deep, each note echoing like a heartbeat through the still valley. Haru brushed away the frost, and the bell's surface glowed faintly. Symbols, long worn by time, seemed to stir in the light. His grandfather approached slowly, bowing his head. The bell marks a crossing. Long ago, travelers would ring it before stepping onto the bridge, to announce their passage. Even now, it remembers. Haru reached out and touched the frozen metal. A hum vibrated through his fingers, filling his chest with warmth. For a moment, he heard voices woven into the chime, the laughter of children, the tread of sandals, the rustle of robes. All those who had once crossed were still present in its sound. When he let go, the bell continued to ring softly on its own, as if to say the bridge still listens. Chapter 30. Dawn over the Silent Valley. For days, snow had ruled the valley. But now, for the first time, dawn came with color. Haru woke early to see the horizon glowing faintly pink, the first blush of warmth spreading across the white fields. He climbed the hill above the village, breath rising in clouds. From there he saw the entire valley bathed in quiet light. The snow gleamed not with silver, but with hints of gold and rose. In that moment, the silence felt different, not heavy, but full, like a breath held before release. Even the sparrows stirred, their wings rustling faintly in the willows. Then, just as the sun's edge crested the horizon, Haru saw it, the hidden bridge stretched faintly across the valley. Formed not of shadow or ice or starlight, but of dawn itself. Each board glowed with soft color, each railing traced in fire, the whole arch shimmering like a path woven from the morning sky. Haru's heart lifted. This was no dream, no fleeting vision. It was a promise the bridge renewed with each sunrise, waiting patiently for him to cross again. His grandfather stood beside him, eyes reflecting the dawn. Every day begins with a bridge, Haru. And every crossing brings us closer. The sun rose higher, and the valley awakened. Yet within that moment of stillness, Haru knew the hidden bridge was as constant as the light itself. Chapter 31. The Lanterns of Returning Light. As winter began to loosen its grip, the villagers prepared a small festival of light. Though snow still blanketed the fields, lanterns were hung along the lanes, their glow piercing the frost with gentle warmth. Haru walked with his grandfather through the lantern-lit village. Each flame swayed softly, and together they looked like a river of light flowing through the snow. The sparrows, returning little by little, perched on rooftops, chirping faintly as if to greet the glowing procession. At the river's edge, Haru noticed the lantern's reflections forming not random shapes, but the curve of a bridge across the icy water. His breath caught. Even here, in celebration, the hidden bridge revealed itself woven into the simple act of lighting the dark. Chapter 32 The Sparrow at the Window. One morning, Haru awoke to the sound of wings. A sparrow sat perched upon his window frame, its feathers ruffled, its eyes bright with life. He opened the shutter slowly, and the sparrow did not fly away. Instead, it hopped closer, chirping a note so soft it seemed more whisper than song. Haru felt as if the bird carried a message, though not in words. His grandfather smiled when Haru told him. "The sparrows are guides," he said. "They move easily between the seen and unseen. When they come to your window, they remind you that the bridge is near." That day, Haru noticed sparrows following him everywhere, fluttering through the willows, darting across the snow. Each wingbeat was like a heartbeat of the hidden bridge itself. Chapter 33 The Garden Beneath the Snow. Curious, Haru dug into the snow near their home, where last autumn's garden had been. Beneath the thick crust of ice and frost, he found green shoots pressing upward, stubborn and alive. He touched the small sprouts, feeling warmth in his chest. Even in the depth of winter, life had never left. It had only hidden, waiting for the moment to return. That night, he dreamed of walking across a bridge made of blossoms, plum, camellia, and early cherry growing from the snow, petals scattering into the twilight as he crossed. Chapter 34 The Silent Pilgrimage. In the days that followed, Haru and his grandfather joined the villagers in a long walk to the shrine at the valley's edge. No drums or chants accompanied them, only the sound of their footsteps in the snow. It was called the Silent Pilgrimage, a tradition held once each winter. They believed the hidden bridge listened best when the valley itself was quiet. As Haru walked, his footsteps joined hundreds of others, their trail curving across the whiteness like a vast, communal bridge. He realized then that the hidden bridge was not only his own journey, but one shared by all who walked together in silence. Chapter 35 The Bridge of Breath and Shadow. One evening, as twilight fell, Haru sat by the river and noticed his own breath rising into the cold air. Each exhale formed a cloud that lingered before fading into the dark. But as he watched carefully, the clouds did not scatter at random. They drifted together, forming an arch. The hidden bridge appeared in his breath, each shadow of vapor another board, another railing. He inhaled and exhaled slowly, and the bridge grew clearer, as though his very life was shaping it. His grandfather's voice came softly from behind. "The bridge lives in our breath, Haru. As long as we breathe, we are already crossing." Haru closed his eyes, breathing deeply. Each breath carried him farther, each shadow built the path. When he opened his eyes, the bridge shimmered faintly across the twilight woven of breath, shadow, and silence. Chapter 36: The Bridge of Echoing Steps. The snow was melting now, revealing patches of earth beneath. Haru walked the river path, and for the first time, he heard not silence, but the sound of his own steps. The crisp echo startled him. It seemed louder than it should have been, as if the ground itself amplified each footfall. When he stopped, the sound did not. A second set of steps followed, though no one was there. They walked in rhythm with his own, steady and sure. Haru felt no fear. Instead, warmth filled his chest. The bridge was answering. Each step he took was mirrored by another, unseen traveler walking with him. He understood then that no one ever crossed alone. Chapter 37: The Sparrow's Farewell. The sparrows had grown bolder with the coming spring. They filled the air with soft songs, darting through the budding branches. One evening, as Haru sat by the willow grove, a sparrow landed on his shoulder. It chirped once, clear and bright, then took flight toward the horizon. More sparrows followed, rising in a flock that curved like an arch across the twilight sky. Haru watched until they vanished into the distance, their flight forming the bridge itself. His grandfather's words returned to him. The sparrow carries the evening song, and through it, the bridge. The farewell was not sorrowful. It was a promise that when he was ready, the sparrows would guide him across. Chapter 38: The Grandfather's Crossing. One dawn, Haru awoke to find his grandfather seated quietly by the river, staff across his knees. The old man's face was calm, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the first light glowed. "Haru," he said softly, "the bridge calls me." Haru's throat tightened. "Will you return?" His grandfather smiled gently. "Every crossing leads to another. You will find me again, on the far side." As the sun rose, the hidden bridge appeared, brighter and clearer than ever before. The old man stood, walked onto its shining boards, and without hesitation crossed into the light. Haru watched, tears on his cheeks, until the figure vanished into dawn. Chapter 39: The Eternal Arch. Grief pressed heavily on Haru, yet it was softened by certainty. The bridge remained luminous in his heart. That night, he dreamed of the eternal arch. It stretched not only across rivers and valleys, but across seasons, stars, and lifetimes. Every crossing was part of it, every voice an echo in its boards. His grandfather was there, as were countless other sparrows, villagers, unseen travelers. All journeys converged upon the same path. The eternal arch had no end. It curved into infinity, carrying him always onward. Chapter 40 The Dawn Beyond the Bridge. Spring arrived at last. The snow melted into streams, the fields greened, and the sparrows returned in full song. Haru stood once more on the hill above the village, the valley spread wide beneath him. As the sun rose, he saw the hidden bridge gleam clear, whole, eternal. Not faint, not fading, but steady, as though the dawn itself had built it from light. Haru breathed deeply. His steps would continue, shaping his own path, guided by echoes, lanterns, sparrows, and memory. The bridge would always wait, whether in shadow or flame, in silence or song. He whispered into the morning air, "I am ready." And though no one stood beside him, he felt the presence of many grandfather, sparrows, unseen companions walking with him. As he set his first step onto the dawn-lit bridge, crossing toward the endless horizon,